Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying when you eat unhealthy, you become a food addict. Because unhealthy food is addicting, and you can't control your appetite anymore. The only way to lose weight permanently and keep it a healthy weight the rest of your life is by eating a healthy diet. You can't cut back on calories when you're eating unhealthily, because you can't tolerate cutting back on calories. You feel too ill if you try to. The point is that these foods are highly addicting. When calories rush into the bloodstream so rapidly, it's not natural. When you eat beans, you're getting glucose, carbohydrates into the bloodstream, but it comes at about 1 calorie per minute. You're eating sugar and honey and maple syrup and fast food and ice cream and all this crap, people, donuts and cookies and croissants, and the calories are rushing like 50 calories a minute. Your body's not designed to accept 50 calories a minute. That's a drug. That's snorting cocaine. That's injecting heroin, 50 calories a minute. And you have unfavorable hormones that occur as a result of that. And these hormones so insulin's a hormone, estrogen's a hormone, IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1 is a hormone. And we know that excessive circulating hormones promotes cancer, promotes aging, promotes loss of mental clarity. The point I'm making right now is that the only thing ever been proven in the history of science to radically extend the lifespan of animals, insects, worms, fruit flies, rodents, primates, baboons and chimpanzees and humans, all species of animals, the same thing's been shown to increase lifespan in all species of animals and insects, and that is moderate caloric restriction in an environment of micronutrient excellence. That is, taking in somewhat less calories, but supplying the optimal amount of nutrients that don't contain calories, of course. Micronutrients do not contain calories. The optimal amount of nutrients that humans require. And the only way you can do that to extend human lifespan and slow the aging process, the only fountain of youth, is to eat more foods that are nutrient rich and naturally contain these undiscovered nutrients that are in vegetables and fruits and beans and nuts and onions and mushrooms, undiscovered nutrients. And less foods that are man-made or processed where the nutrients are stripped out of them. We have to get back to nature. You have to get back to growing our own food, eating foods in the woods, eating foods grown on good soils, on biological soils, with a few insects and bacteria. So we're so divorced from nature that our bodies don't function normally anymore. But the thing is that nutritional science has made such advances in the last 20 years that we can give people information to protect themselves that's so critical. Like, for example, if you want to build up and thicken the biofilm, the bacteria that line the villi in the small intestines, with healthy bacteria, that prevents inflammation, helps you lose weight. Because this biofilm of healthy bacteria slows the absorption of glucose into the bloodstream. I was just talking a minute ago how the rapid rush of glucose into the bloodstream acts like a drug. But when you eat a mango or oatmeal, they produce glucose into the bloodstream, but it doesn't come in as fast as when you had ice cream or white bread. But the thing is, when you thicken your biofilm, even the mango and the oatmeal now come in much slower. And there are 4 secret foods that thicken the biofilm. 2 raw foods and 2 cooked foods. The 2 raw foods that thicken the biofilm are raw green vegetables, especially raw cruciferous vegetables like kale and cabbage and broccoli and bok choy and watercress and arugula, and raw onion or scallion. Those 2 foods, you have a salad with raw vegetables, with raw greens and onions on it or scallions on it, it really promotes the healthy bacteria to grow in your gut. There's more bacteria cells growing in your gut than there are cells in the whole rest of your body. Actually, 10 times the amount of bacteria cells in the gut than there is in the whole cells in the rest of your body. And those cells produce nutrients and have an important function. And if you're eating the wrong foods, the sweets and meats diet, then you produce all these bacteria that have pro-inflammatory effects and have weight-gaining effects. When you eat the raw vegetables and the onions, then you have the beneficial microbiome and the beneficial bacteria. And the 2 cooked foods, cooked mushrooms and cooked beans. Because beans are rich in resistant starch that act as a prebiotic to help the growth of healthy bacteria. And the mushrooms also promote the growth of healthy bacteria in the gut. And this combination of 4 foods thickens the biofilm. So now when you have your oatmeal, your mango, or your orange in the morning, you have a lower glycemic effect. So the scientists call it the second meal effect. It means that even when you're not eating low glycemic foods, the glycemic load of the meal is lower because you ate those foods that had beneficial effect on your microbiome. So what I'm saying here is we have so much information today that if healthcare was predominantly the science of human nutrition, then we'd wipe out all the healthcare problems in America. We'd have our healthcare, the companies would have all this extra money to spend on their employees. Right now, the healthcare crisis affects every American. It increases our taxes, it increases the deficit. Our companies don't have money to expand, to be competitive in the world. And the population of workers we have are dummied down because of their bad diet. And they're also aging faster, and they also can't focus and concentrate. So you have a better, healthier workforce when you feed them healthier as well. And you don't have healthcare expenses. So we're talking about the effect, the human tragic effects on the society, but also the economic effects and the environmental effects. And so I'm saying here that people underestimate, by 100-fold, tremendously underestimate the power proper nutrition has to solve so many problems in our society. Even in my book, Fast Food Genocide, I discuss the link between not just fast food and processed food and depression, but fast food and processed foods and lowering of intelligence, inability to realize the American dream and to get a good education, and the link between fast food and sugar and candy and processed food and crime and drug use and drug abuse. Right now we have half of our population, or I should say the majority of people incarcerated into federal prisons today are there because of nonviolent drug-related offenses. And I'm saying that sugar and candy and fast food are the gateway drug to more serious drug use because they're addicting. You get dopamine sensitive, and it drives you to be wanting to take more brain-stimulating substances, and it makes people more prone to violence and crime and drug abuse. So we want to solve and help people who are living in poverty. Food is the answer. They can't get out of poverty when they have fast food restaurants and convenience stores and no access to food because they can't reach their genetic potential. And this fast food environment that we've allowed to perpetuate, to permeate the inner cities, is a form of bigotry to a degree. Even in medical school. In medical school, we learned black Americans, much higher rates of prostate and breast cancer, much higher rates of stroke and diabetes, much higher rates of these serious problems, as if it's due to their skin color. Bull. It's due to the food they're eating. We look at the real studies and break it down. We find that any population, white populations thrust in the same environments have the same high rates of disease. We go back in history and we look at after the Civil War, when black Americans were freed, they had more centenarians, more people living to be 100 years old among the black Americans compared to the white Caucasian Southerners. In other words, because they had access to beans and green vegetables then. The Jim Crow laws, the white supremacy movement, all the violence in the South driving them into northern inner cities, the advent of World War I and World War II, and the growth of the fast food industry, making fast food cheap and convenient, and the growth of the convenience foods and the junk foods, taking away the opportunity of people to realize the American dream. So what I'm saying here, it's not we're genetically more similar than we ever thought. What makes the primary differences among people isn't their skin color or their heritage or the background. It's the food they're eating. If you want to have the opportunity to do well with your life and do well for your family, it's important to have access to healthy food to realize your genetic potential. Isn't that the birthright? Isn't that like a birthright of America? Isn't that something that we stand for as Americans? Equal opportunity for all and the opportunity to realize the American dream and have a good, successful, and happy life. And it's so great to be in this country. We have such a most incredible, beautiful country with fertile soils, with volcanic soils and all types of, ability to grow healthy food here in different climates and different, we have such natural ability to sustain ourselves and to be healthy. And we've gone in a wrong direction. The direction we've gone into is processed foods and fake foods and frankenfoods and drugs, both illegal drugs and legal drugs. And the idea that our medical profession and drugs and the pharmaceutical companies are our savior for all that ails us. You're depressed? Take a drug. Don't eat right. Don't check your nutrient levels. Don't make sure you're eating a healthy diet. You're overweight? Get a gastric bypass or a lap band. Don't learn how to get rid of your food addictions and eat right. You have heart disease? Cut open your chest. Don't eat properly and reverse it. And the worst thing is that people don't have informed consent. They're not told these blood pressure medications are linked to cancer. They're not told that people taking calcium channel blockers for 10 years or more are shown to have double the risk of breast cancer after 10 years. Not even discussed. They don't have informed consent. They're not told that the bypass surgery and angioplasties do not extend lifespan. They do not reduce future risk of future heart attacks. As a matter of fact, they actually makes things worse. You put a stent in, you have to be on a clot-busting drug the rest of your life because now you have a foreign body in your heart. And being on a clot-busting drug or a blood thinner the rest of your life increases your risk of hemorrhagic stroke. So now you've taken a person and put them at higher risk. That's fine if that was the only option. And obviously some people having a heart attack have to put a stent in because they would die if they don't open the blood vessel up. But the point is people aren't told the option. They're not told before the heart attack what to have done. They're not told that they didn't have to have these diseases happen to them. They're not told the futility of these interventions and how relatively ineffective they are. So my position is that I think if people had truly informed consent, they knew how futile the medical interventions were, how futile cancer treatments were, how futile cardiovascular procedures were, how futile these medications are at really extending lifespan. We'd have many millions of more people more willing and ready to embrace excellent nutrition as a means of protecting themselves. So people deserve to know the facts here. And if you want to imbibe and go out drinking 5 nights a week, or you want to snort cocaine, or you want to smoke cigarettes, which we know is a carcinogen, you have the right to do that. But at least you're informed properly that you know cigarettes cause lung cancer and heart attacks. If you want to take that chance, go ahead and do it. Nobody forced you to smoke those cigarettes. But it's different with food. Because they're telling you to eat the foods that are bad, that are causing the problem. And nobody's giving you proper warning, and nobody's warning you about the dangers of the drugs. Nobody's telling you how futile, how relatively ineffective they are. How when we use drugs in combination, like we are being used in many people on multiple medications, how they increase the risk of cancer. They're not told about the side effects. They're not told how relatively little benefit you get, for example, from taking high blood pressure medications and cholesterol and drugs, reducing the risk of future heart attacks by maybe 10%, when we can reduce your risk 100-fold if you just change your diet. And people aren't given that option and told what the relative benefits and risks are. And they deserve to know this. And candy. Can you imagine parents bringing candy and donuts to their kids' soccer games and baseball games, poisoning their children, destroying the intelligence of their children, and creating cancer in the future of their own children? Who's going to stand up for this thing? You know, it takes courage. Because you know how you say, put the oxygen mask on yourself first. Don't participate, don't go to a party and participate in imbibing. Bring a healthy dish. Be open. Maybe you'll save a life. Maybe you'll convince somebody. But people, if they don't have self-esteem, they want to fit in and hide. I'm saying don't hide. Be a role model. Take great care of your health and do it openly and object to what other people are doing. We need everybody's help here. We need politicians and educators and nurses and, athletes and media people and regular people. If the more people we have embracing excellent nutrition, walking the walk and talking the talk and sharing the benefits, we could change society. It's not going to come from the medical profession, who's really a drug dispensing organization, basically. And it's not going to come from the politicians in Washington, because they're affected by the lobbyists, and the biggest lobbyists are the food industry and the drug industry. It has to come from the people. It has to come from, and the nutritional scientists and the nutritional research shows solid information, has been distorted by the media. It's like they're so confused getting wrong information. So I really, hope people study this information, become an expert, because together we can change the world here.